He lunged forward with speed Waite could not have believed the man capable of, and snatched the phone away from him. He lifted it high and brought it down on the corner of the desk with a snap. The earpiece broke cleanly away from the phone, dangling loosely from a small bundle of black and yellow wires. Steve shook the ruined phone at him and bellowed, "I told you, I don't want your fucking charity!" He dropped the phone and stepped forward to grab a hold of the arms of Waite's chair in a gesture that was obviously meant to be imposing, but stumbled and almost landed himself in the man's lap. It might even have been humorous in another time and place. Steve brought his face down inches from Waite's own face and snarled at him, eyes not quite focusing. Waite could smell booze on him. He was really loaded. "Do you realize how easily I could just simply pick you up and toss you through that window, you little prick? How easily I could just end your worthless life, you little wife-stealing fuck?" Waite kicked backward, toppling the chair, spilling himself onto the floor and snaking away on his hands and knees, terrified that Steve would advance on him. Instead, Steve roared, his shoulders slumping in an angry posture reminiscent of a gorilla. He grabbed the first thing he saw on the desk, a coffee mug, and hurled it at the wall. It exploded in a firework of ceramic shards. "Steve!" Waite called from where he sat on the floor. "Calm the fuck down, man!" "Calm down? You're telling me to calm down?" Steve roared at him. "You have everything. Fucking everything. And you have to take the one thing that I care about? The one thing that makes me happy?" Steve gave the desk a powerful kick, shifting it half a foot and spilling its contents all over the floor. "Fuck you, Steve," Waite said with as much confidence as he could muster. "First of all, Sarah isn't a thing. She's not some icon that represents your happiness. She's a woman. And second of all, I didn't take shit from you. She left you. She fucking walked out on you. If you were so goddamn happy, then why did your wife leave you? Because you're a lousy husband and a drunk. That's why. Because the only person you give a fuck about is yourself. You weren't happy, and you sure as hell weren't making her happy." Waite pulled himself into a sitting position and continued his barrage. "You really expect anyone to stand by you when all you can think about is where your next drink is coming from? Get a fucking grip, man, and stop blaming other people for your problems. When I met Sarah, she was already well shed of you. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself." Waite looked at the big man, expecting him to charge, waiting for the beating that would signal the beginning of the end. He almost welcomed it. At least then he could press charges and have this creep out of his life for good. Steve didn't charge. In fact, he had tears in his eyes. He seemed to look around the office and wonder, as if he'd just woken up there and wasn't exactly sure where he was. Then he slobbered one arm across his tear and sweat-streaked face. "Sorry," he said simply in a childish and almost inaudible voice, and stumbled to the chair he'd earlier refused, and sat with his hands covering his reddening face. "Oh God, I'm so sorry, Sarah," he sobbed into his palms. Waite looked at him in disbelief, but he couldn't help but feel bad for the big man. He shook his head and crossed the room, actually putting his hand on Steve's massive shoulder. This was bizarre, but at least he wasn't wrecking the place anymore. Steve continued to weep openly. "I'm sorry about the phone, Lawrence," he said pathetically. "Don't worry about it. It's just a phone. I'm just glad it wasn't my face, you fucking psycho," he added in his head. "I'm really going to need you to leave now, though, Steve," he said instead. "I have a lot of other appointments to keep today." Steve nodded dumbly as he got to his feet, his eyes swollen and puffy. He stumbled to the door and out into the hallway. Waite followed him in amazement, watching him walk awkwardly down the hallway and through the waiting room. Rebecca was already there when they came out, listening by the door with her cell phone in her hand. "Do you need me to call the police, Dr. Waite?" she asked him. "No, I don't think so. I think it'll be okay for now." She nodded and put the cell phone back in her breast pocket. "That guy is really scary. You should get a restraining order or something." "Yeah, maybe," he agreed, running his fingers through his hair. Then he turned and went into his office to straighten up. Annie Bauman lay on her bed relaxing. She was stressed out. But if yoga class had taught her anything, it was how to separate herself from her stress. She wore a simple white tank top and cotton panties, digging the toes of her bare feet into the crushed velvet of her bedspread, loving the way it felt on the soles of her feet and against the back of her naked arms. The television in front of her played some old sci-fi movie, but she turned the sound off and put the subtitles on. Instead, she listened to a tape recording of a thunderstorm. The sound of rain had always helped to relax her when she felt stressed like this. Something about it being cold and rainy outside made it feel warm and dry inside. She closed her eyes and smiled. She only needed one more thing. Reaching over the side of her bed, she retrieved a small wooden box. Inside the box were a small glass pipe, a Bic lighter, and a small bag of pot. She packed herself a bowl and lit it, taking a long, lung-burning drag. As she exhaled, she could feel the weed work its way into her nervous system. She visualized that the universe was in motion. The planets spun around the sun. The sun revolved around the earth, and the earth revolved around her. And there, in the center, she lay motionless, calm and as peaceful as a child in the womb. She hit the bowl again, and then placed it, still smoldering, on her nightstand. She closed her eyes and let the gentle sound of the rain and rolling thunder penetrate her senses. She felt her muscles relax, but she couldn't get rid of that one last knot in her neck. She thought it might be a physical representation of the stress she'd felt all week. She'd spent an awful lot of time trying to get a job with the Department of Public Safety. She was making just over $40,000 a year, and that was the most she'd ever made in her life, and the job held the possibility of making her a lot more. Now she was afraid that she might have screwed it up. She'd been sent to inspect a new courthouse in Kettle Creek, the next town over, and had apparently made a serious mistake in her paperwork. The department had been forced to send another more seasoned inspector to completely redo the inspection, and she had landed herself on probation. She had been the primary connection between her office and Chase Lawrence, the foreman of the crew that was in charge of restoring the old Kettle Creek High School that had burned down in the 60s. She had taken care of all of the preliminary paperwork and met with Chase multiple times. It was a big job, and now she doubted she would even be involved with the project. Chase wasn't bad looking either. Of course, she had no real interest in him. She was a happily married woman, but their obvious mutual attraction definitely sanded the edges on a usually rough working relationship. She needed to stop thinking about this shit. She needed to relax. She slowed her breathing and forced a smile again. Someone had told her once that the act of smiling actually sent signals to the brain that emulated the emotions you feel that make you smile. She didn't know if that was true, but she knew it made her feel better. She reached forward and touched her toes, letting her head hang on a loose neck, and gently turned it from side to side, trying to work the knot out. Maybe she would ask Henry, her husband, to massage it for her when he got home. She ran her fingers up the gentle slope of her legs, feeling the smooth flesh. That one slightly stubbly area just below her kneecaps that was impossibly difficult to shave. Up along her thighs, to the hem of her panties. She imagined that they were Henry's hands. A good fuck would certainly help her relax. She rolled onto her side, taking her pipe from the nightstand and taking another hit. Okay, now things were getting groovy. She felt tingly and a little hungry and very horny. She got up and crossed the room, looking through her CDs for something to listen to. Pink Floyd. Yeah, that's the ticket. She laid back down and let Roger Waters' strangely hypnotic voice take her back to the laser light show that Henry had taken her to on one of their first dates.